Hey everybody, it's Ryan from Pie Records, and I'm here with Isaac from Slowey and the Boats. How are you, Isaac?
Hey, all right. How's it going, Ryan?
Good, good. How's it going today? And you're on the East Coast, correct?
Yeah, I'm in Philadelphia here.
Oh,
Yeah, it's going good. Just got home from work.
guess where I'm from?
Where are you from?
Philadelphia.
Hey, all right.
uh, the reason I asked that because um, the High Tide Recordings people they asked me, do you know Slowey and the Boats? They're in Philadelphia, and I said no. So I quick went and got a listen, and thought I'd hit you guys up for an interview.
That's great. Where are you chatting from today?
I'm actually in Pottstown, but I work at the Wells Fargo Center.
Okay, gotcha. Nice.
So tell me a little bit about Slowey and the Boats. I know you have like a heavily Hawaiian influenced sound. Um but there's also like jazz elements too, would you say?
Yeah, definitely. We're a five-piece band here, instrumental, although our records we do have vocalists on. I think not on our first record, but on the other ones we do have some guest vocalists, and we'll have one coming out with a new vocalist that we haven't featured yet. Although we've actually featured him on a Christmas track. This guy Steve Stanislaw, and then we have Shannon McGill singing on some of the tracks. But mostly we perform as an instrumental quintet. And yeah, we started here in Philadelphia around 2012, 2013. I had been studying the steel guitar and just learning a bunch of cool old Jerry Bird tunes, bunch of Speedy West stuff, and knew a bunch of great musicians that weren't at the time very busy, and got them together. And yeah, so we and then we got this monthly gig at Dawson Street Pub that, of course, fell off with the pandemic, but hopefully will return soon. And that was kind of our mainstay gig for 7, 8 years. And of course, it was a great platform for getting other gigs out of that. It was like a one Sunday a month barbecue, and so we'd hang out in the afternoon, and people would come through. Um, and yeah, we've done, around Philadelphia, there's not too much going on in terms of tiki bars, although hopefully that's changing now. I've been hearing about a couple things opening up. But High Tide signed us. We were actually the first band signed to High Tide. They heard our release, Set Sail, that we put out. And actually, they just released that on vinyl. And so they signed us early on, and then kind of, I guess, started the label around some of our music, and putting out a bunch of other stuff, after that.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And they have that big festival.
Yeah, it started as the Asbury Park Surf Music Festival, and has since gone on to become just the High Tide Holiday, High Tide Weekend. And so they can feature all kinds of different bands and events and make it more of like a lifestyle weekend getaway thing. So yeah, High Tide has been just the best thing. I mean, when we formed the band, our ambitions just kind of were to learn some of these tunes that nobody else was playing, and maybe get a couple gigs. But High Tide really helped us kind of take it to another level with their merchandising, and of course all the vinyl that they've released. It's really allowed us to do stuff that we wouldn't have done otherwise. We went to the Mai Kai down in Fort Lauderdale and played the Hukilau. And of course their yearly festival, we performed there. And yeah, they would also host a great Christmas party every year. They have a great scene of folks based around Asbury Park, but they're worldwide now. They have bands from all over the world. So it's been nothing but great for us to be on that label.
Awesome. Yeah, those guys are great. I'm actually wearing a volcanic shirt.
Oh yeah.
And you know they put a lot of stuff out with Vince.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about what you're doing right now. I know you've had was it 2 years ago that your last release was out?
Well, actually, we released a Christmas album last Christmas, and so that was our last, I guess, new release. Although then this summer we put out our first 45. We did a 45 RPM with Wave and Ebb Tide, two great tracks there. And then High Tide in August released our first album that was self-produced back in, when we first started the band. I think we recorded it in 2013. And and that was the album that initially got their attention. And so it was only on CD, and they had been wanting to give it a actual vinyl release. So they put that out on vinyl, and it's so we've actually, with the pandemic, we've been able to kind of keep rolling with these releases, because right before the pandemic, we went into the studio and recorded like 25, 26 tracks. And then High Tide is actually going to get ready to, I believe they're going to be releasing a full length record based on some of those tracks. So yeah, they are, they're great. They just keep putting stuff out, and they love what we do.
Awesome. When you finally get something on vinyl, is that kind of like your stamp, like, all right, this is like, we've done it now?
Yeah, no, it really does make it like an official thing, and it kind of legitimizes it in this way where, CDs, they I wouldn't print them up anymore. I know bands are still doing it, and for good reason in some cases, but the vinyl just has a certain cachet. It's got a certain value to it on its own, and it's just so cool to think that people like the vinyl, they're vinyl collectors, but then it could have a second life through filtering down to some record store, who knows where. So yeah, it's the type of thing that seems a little bit more enduring as far as a physical release.
Yeah. Slowey and the Boats, tell me a little bit about the name.
Yeah, the name, that's like one of the top questions, other than what is that instrument you're playing. People always ask about the name, and the name, it, of course, as you may have guessed, started as a joke, because it just was one of these things where we were hanging out in West Philly, getting together there in our early days, and we were learning a bunch of new repertoire. We had a bunch of Speedy West tunes. And so we had this guitar player at the time, Tim Sonnefeld, who's since moved on to Los Angeles and is working out there. But he was just teasing me and calling me Slowey, in comparison to Speedy West. And then we had our first gig booked. We were playing this like bookstore gig with another band. And we had been working on, I guess it was the tune Slow Boat to China.
Yeah.
And Slowey and the Boats, I don't know, it just kind of emerged from the ether, and it was like too silly to not use. And also, through just initially I was doing the artwork and the logos and everything, and just kind of put it on, I think I printed some t-shirts, and it just stuck, and it was like, people got a chuckle out of it, but then, it just stuck with us, and people liked it. People still come up and ask me about it all the time. And there's, so I was never known as Slowey until this band started, and then it just kind of happened, and then it was too late to go back. And I love, I love the name, as silly as it is. It fits us. Something, there's just so much great imagery that we've used in our artwork and posters with nautical themes and boats. And of course, the music we play is very island inspired. So there was just a lot to work with there, and it just seemed to fit really well.
Amongst the other surf bands in the community, the surf community, how how did you wind up playing Hawaiian sounding music? Like what led you down that path?
Well, I mean, guitar, the steel guitar is a Hawaiian instrument in its origin. And so I was learning to, not everything was a Hawaiian melody. I mean, my only connection to Hawaii, my dad grew up in Hawaii. He was a military brat. And so his family was moving around from place to place, and he spent his high school years on Oahu. And he had a great love of the music of Hawaii. So we had some records around the house when I was growing up. I've traveled there. I was there once, I think it was 2018, and just had such an amazing trip. But anything I played, I was playing a lot on the C6 tuning. And that tuning just has this Hawaiian flavor to it. And so, we play these Hawaiian melodies, but then we play other stuff from different songbooks. And it kind of just, it sounds Hawaiian, the way you play it. I took some steel lessons with some Hawaiian players when I was out there. I just love the music. It's just such a great vibe. All the players I met out there were super friendly and encouraging. And so, it's just been, I took a lesson with Alan Akaka. There was a couple players that I met that just were a big inspiration to me. So, yeah.
So you trained in Hawaii?
No, well, I took some lessons when I was there. But I had been playing and just learning with along with records. But I started on the pedal steel when I started playing steel guitar, which that was more of like a U.S. Nashville, Bakersfield sound creation. But there was just some, and I still play it. Mechanically, it's much more complicated, but the lap steel is just so beautiful in its simplicity and it's kind of even more, the technique is so much more demanding in this way that is just, it's like this infinite puzzle of trying to produce these musical sounds out of this thing that in and of itself it is a pretty simple instrument. It's just some strings stretched across a pickup and you're playing with a bar and picks, but the vocal quality of that sound and just the musicality you can get from that with volume and your touch is just something that has always been alluring to me, I guess.
It's a great way to get a good melody out of playing chords. Would you say?
Yeah.
And it's unique in that way.
Yeah, and so really, we just gravitate to any song with a good melody, something that's stuck in my head, or we draw from all kinds of musical traditions, everything from tango, jazz. We have such a broad repertoire, and all the guys in the band are super versatile. So it really allows us to go in often different directions, and I'm kind of keeping it based on the melody of the tune. I'll state the melody up front usually, and then we just have some brilliant improvisers in the band that it's just a total blast to turn them loose on some of these tunes.
Would you say every night that you play out, it's kind of a different groove to it?
Yeah, I mean, we are an improvisational band, and so it's definitely every time we do it, it's a little bit different. And we've slowed down in terms of our gigging with the pandemic, but we had a great summer. We did a couple shows out at Longwood Gardens and had a great turnout. There's a Philly tiki scene, and they showed up in force and bought a bunch of records and made a great event out of it. And we're planning to do a proper Christmas release in just a couple months now for the Christmas album that was released last year. But yeah, every time we do it, it's a little different and different vibe.
Longwood Gardens is beautiful.
It's great, yeah, and it was a great venue for us. Just we lucked out with the weather. We had 2 shows out there this past summer, And I played out there for years with some bluegrass players. Also play the dobro, a resonator guitar, which is kind of the steel guitar in bluegrass. It's kind of how it fits into bluegrass. It's an acoustic instrument with like a big resonator cone in it. And so I played out there for years with that. And then they asked me to bring Slowey and the Boats out there, and it was a great fit.
Awesome. I can see not only bluegrass, but how you kind of just don't get enough with one genre. Like there's many things going on at one time in your head when you're writing a tune.
Yeah, and all our tunes are, we are taking tunes from the American Songbook, from every, I'm not a songwriter, but we are reinterpreting these songs, and it's just such a great this band. It's been going now, 8 years, and it seems to be enduring just because the songs are so great, the players are great, and it's such a great vibe. People just, it's such an evocative sound, and there's nobody else really in our area that's playing this repertoire. There's even some other surf bands, but the repertoire of tunes we do is kind of based in these songs that there's not really anybody else doing them, so it kind of fits a nice little niche.
Awesome. Tell me a little bit about some of the members in your band that you're playing with. You said you were a 5-piece.
Yeah, so right now in the band, we've got bass player Mike Flatke, who's playing the upright bass. And I play with him. He's one of my longest musical collaborators. I played with him since, early 2000s, mid 2000s in different settings. We got our newest member is guitar player Brennan Ernst, and he is originally from Northern Virginia, but has married a woman from Philadelphia and lives right down the road from me now in Germantown. And he's, I guess, the youngest guy in the band, and just an amazing, mind-blowing guitar player, but also plays, bluegrass banjo, plays an amazing piano. We got Freddie Berman. He's a Philadelphia legend in terms of his resume. He's played with everybody from Amos Lee on, he's been in the Philly music scene for years. David Strime plays the Wurlitzer. On our albums, it's been the Rhodes studio keyboard that he plays, but usually on the gigs, it's a Wurlitzer. Also a complete musical savant. I grew up with David, actually. So he was in my younger brother's grade growing up, and he's just always coming up with amazing musical ideas. He plays the keyboard, the trumpet, and who am I forgetting here? We got Freddie, Mike, Brennan, David, and myself. That's everybody.
Awesome. Tell me a little bit about the different vocalists that you work with, and why you choose different ones.
Yeah, Shannon McGill has sung on a couple of our records, and I remember the first time I saw her sing. I walked up. There's a bar in Philly. I don't know if you remember Fergie's Pub, but on Sansom Street, and I think it's still there. And it was always like a great musical hub where you'd see some great stuff. And I walked up there one night and saw her singing, and was just kind of transfixed by her stage presence and her delivery, and just thought she was such a great singer. And she heard the first record we recorded, the one that was just most recently put out on vinyl, Set Sail. And I think she just loved it. She got in touch with me and said she loved it. And I was like, wow, that's great to hear. We'll have to have you come in and sing on some. And so we brought her into the studio for our second album, Beneath an Amber Moon. And then we would do this big yearly Christmas party every year. So she'd come down and sing a bunch of Christmas songs. She loves Christmas music as much as the rest of us. And then recently we brought in this session we did just before the pandemic, it was November of 2019, we brought in our friend Steve Stanislaw. And Steve is, he's got this great old school country voice, kind of, Lefty Frizzell elements of just, Hank Williams, some great old time country music. Hank Snow, he just got this, and just kind of a natural feel to his singing. And so he did a bunch of tracks with us. We did just a bunch of tunes at that session, and hoping to release some of that stuff soon.
How did you find him? I mean, more so what made you think of putting him in a song?
Well, I think what it was, I knew him through the kind of country bluegrass scene. I play country music with a bunch of friends around Philly, and I guess, he'd come to some of the jams, he'd come to some of the parties that I would hang out with, and I just loved his take on it, because he was just singing these old country tunes that I loved, and with just such effortlessness. When we recorded, we did a bunch of Marty Robbins tunes. So yeah, it was kind of a little bit different in High Tide. When they got the stuff we recorded, we're like, oh, this is a little different. This is maybe less Hawaiian, more country sounding. So we'll see what they put together with what we recorded, but it is somewhat of a new direction for us. Nothing we're doing is like, this is supposed to be Hawaiian or this is supposed to be country. It's kind of, all the music I love is just kind of a melting pot or a mixture of all of these disparate elements. And so there's a little country, there's a little Hawaiian, there's a little bit of all kinds of stuff, and all the elements that all these players bring to it. But Steve definitely, he's got his own thing, his own sound, and I think you're gonna like what we got coming.
Awesome. How does somebody get started on steel guitar? Like, where does that, you can get started on piano, you can get started on guitar, but what brings you to steel guitar?
For me, that sound is just so evocative, and I was a musician playing other things long before I played the steel guitar. I had played, when I was in college, I played trumpet in a couple bands. I played guitar, and then I stopped playing music for several years through my mid-20s. And but I had this idea in my head about steel guitar, because I remember I had lived in Asheville, North Carolina, and I remember hearing a pedal steel guitar with a band there, and just like, it had this like almost physical effect where I heard it, and it's like, it's such a sad sound, but also kind of comical at the same time. I was like, I didn't know whether to laugh or cry when I heard it. And, but it was kind of pulling on all these strings emotionally. And so, when you hear a sound like that, you got to pay attention. And then I was living in Austin for a year or two, beginning early 2000s. And I wasn't playing any music at the time, but my cousin down there had the Ray Charles country western box set, and it had all these great country tunes sung by Ray Charles, and Buddy Emmons, legendary pedal steel player, was on a lot of these tracks. And I remember just thinking, if I start playing music again, why not just get a pedal steel and go all in? So I didn't actually get my first pedal steel until I was 28, and I got hooked on it, and just kind of locked myself in a room, so to speak, with it, and just could spend hours and hours. Still can. It's just like one of these things when you find something that is infinitely your curiosity can never be satiated with it. That's what the steel guitar is for me. And there's always like something new to learn, technique wise, or and so it was pedal steel at first, and then I got into the lap steel, and then the dobro. And just the amazing thing about steel guitar is there's all these different versions of it. there's all different techniques and different bars you can use, but it can just fit into any type of music pretty much. And so it was also the type of thing where I started playing it, and there weren't many players at the time doing it. So people were asking me to play out with them, playing their bands, and it was just enough to kind of keep me going and keep me hungry to get a little bit better, a little bit better. And I still got that. I'm still like trying to get better. I still consider myself pretty much a beginner at it, because it's just kind of one of these lifetime pursuits. So, but I just love it. It's one of these things that hopefully I never get tired of.
Did you do you read music and play the music, or is it more of like a feel and kind of like an emotional trip when you're playing?
I do read a little bit, not well, but enough to like figure stuff out, which has really come in handy on some gigs I've got. I've been able to luckily play with some folks that are way out of my league. A couple of years ago, I had a gig where I was playing with some members from the Philadelphia Orchestra, and so they gave me some notation, some sheet music. And, it just takes me a long time, but if I can put myself in the practice room for long enough with it, I can figure it out. And then I'm definitely more of a field player, but have just enough musical knowledge to be able to figure things out. If I'm given a lead sheet or a piece of music that is written out, I can work with it. But I can't really sight read that well. So like if I show up to a gig and somebody's like, here's a song you've never heard, here's the sheet music, I'll just be going on my ears, because I can't really just read it on the spot.
So that's very interesting. That it's kind of like an amalgamation of both, but still feels like it's more of like a feeling for you because you have such a love for the sound.
Yeah, I would say it's predominantly I'm going by feel. Like when I have a new song I want to learn, a melody, I'll look up 10 as many versions as I can of it, and kind of like just listen for the things that are appealing to me. What do I like about the song? What are the connections between the different versions of the song? I'll look for a piece of sheet music if I can find one, go to a jazz reel book or a song book where it's written out to kind of get a sense of the chord structure, chord movement behind it. But so it really is kind of a combination of the two.
Awesome. So what this summer you played out a little bit. You have a Christmas album coming out. What do you see happening next year for you?
Well, I really hope that our monthly gig can start up, some sort of monthly gig. That was kind of the lifeblood of the band, because it was just on the calendar. We knew, we'd get together and see a tune or two, and over 7 or 8 years, you got a whole songbook of a couple hundred songs to draw from. So I'm really hoping that the monthly things come back, the bar gigs on a more regular basis. I'm also hoping that we can kind of do a little bit more traveling. Most of the guys in the band have day jobs, so it's a little tough. I'm a teacher, so summertime is great for me. I can really get out and do more. I just this past summer was touring with a ballet company that had a steel guitar in the ballet. And so guitar for me is just kind of taking me some great places. But as far as Slowey and the Boats, I'm hoping that our monthly thing comes back. I'm hoping that we can do some more traveling. We did the Hukilau, I guess it was 2019, 2018. There is like a scene for the type of music we play. It's not necessarily in Philadelphia, but we went to Pittsburgh and played. They got a great tiki bar there called Hidden Harbor, and doing that was right before the pandemic hit as well. And it was just like, man, this is great. They did like 2 sold out brunch sets, and everybody was just there for the music, listening. And hopefully Philly can kind of create a scene like that, where there's a venue that really is a good home for us.
Did you get to go out west to Surf Guitar 101?
No, but that's also on the list. Yeah, tiki, the tiki scene out west is just it's on another level here. So that's hopefully on the list for the future.
So tell me the difference between the country, bluegrass, the ballet, and the sort of Hawaiian music that you play with Slowey and the Boats. Um, what kind of what does the each of those styles of music do for you emotionally?
Well, the they're all, it's like they're all just great. Each musical community has its own kind of norms, its own customs, its own repertoire. And for me, it's so fascinating to be able to kind of be floating between them, to be able to show up with a dobro at a bluegrass jam and know some of those tunes and be able to contribute to that. It's just like for me as a musician, I'm always trying, I'm an accompanist. So I'm trying to see what can I actually do to have some value added for this. So, because I have Slowey in the Boats, which is like a project I put together, but and so I'm the organizer there. That's not going to happen unless I'm like get the guys together and do the work and book the gigs. High Title books some of it, but I still do most of the booking to actually get us out there, which is a lot of work. And then the steel guitar, though, like I said, because it fits into so many things, part of the fun of playing the instrument is getting a call, they like with the ballet, for example. This was a show we toured this summer that actually was originated. I was one of the originators of the show back in 2014, and they were writing this ballet about the first trans-Pacific mail delivery. And so they knew they were going to tell this story through music and ballet of going to Hawaii and Samoa and New Zealand. And they needed some sounds from that region. And so they thought of me and called me in. And just being part of that creative process was amazing. This summer we went to Vail, we went to Sun Valley, Idaho. We did the show in Philadelphia. And it's just, what can I add to the music? What is my role here? And usually my role is to just really lay out for a lot of the song and then just add a little bit of color at a certain point. And so it's that puzzle of figuring out why am I here? Why did I get the call for this gig? And then what can I do so that I'll get the call back, And it's, for me, music is it's the music and my love of the music, but it's also the community and the people that I meet through that. So, it's just been such a pleasure to kind of have a musical tool like the steel guitar that can kind of put me in these very random and different settings that allow me to meet new people, do a little bit of traveling, and play great music.
Very cool. Very cool. You said you were a teacher. What do you teach?
Yeah, man, I'm just getting home from working with seventh graders. I've taught seventh grade social studies for the past 16 years now.
Now, that was one of my favorite subjects, social studies, history. I can't get my kids into it, but my father-in-law was also a history teacher for many, many years. And so I ask you this, what is it about history that you in social studies that kind of influences the way you look at music?
It's funny when you're asking that. I'm thinking of the parallels here because, like I was saying, how the steel guitar kind of fits into every genre. You can play jazz, Hawaiian, country, bluegrass, whatever it is. I even play, like I said, play with these classical players, play with a ballet. And I think the connection there is social studies. And I tell my students this all the time. It connects all of the disciplines. The kids come to me and we do. Well, first of all, I love it because I have this flexibility. I can draw from any subject. We do stuff where the kids are reading stuff and it's more like English class. We do stuff where I'm having the kids draw maps now and it's kind of art class. We do stuff where we're analyzing data and it's more math. We do stuff, interpreting how science is affecting, current events or whatever it is. And so teaching seventh graders has its challenges for sure. Most people, if they get to know me through music, assume I'm a music teacher. but I'm glad I'm not teaching middle school music. You know, I think that could be
Yeah.
tough. You know, kids learning music is it could be tough on you to listen to that every day. And God bless those that are doing it and doing it well. You know, I had a great middle school music teacher, but for me, social studies allows me this flexibility with my students that I can kind of show them that all these things are connected. You know, music, I can bring music into my classroom and I'll play music when we're working. I bring in an instrument and show them, you know, the steel guitar is an instrument, but it's got this history to it that goes back, you know, hundreds of years, and can kind of just weave a narrative through whatever it is. And so it allows me a lot of flexibility, and it, just like the steel guitar, it kind of connects to everything.
That's really cool. It's a really cool way to look at it. Tell me a little bit about the history of the steel guitar that kind of maybe brought some connection to you.
Well, you know, like I said, the steel guitar is a Hawaiian instrument in its origin, and you know, in the 1800s, it was kind of became a signature sound of the Hawaiian Islands. And then what's super fascinating about it is there was like a big Hawaiian music craze apparently in the early 20th century in this country, and a lot of these Hawaiian players came to the United States and began touring around, and it was this kind of novelty, but also, you know, some amazing virtual islands. And through that and through the influence that they had, it began to filter into country music and blues, and you know, those sounds just kind of they just were picked up by all these different genres. And so yeah, the history fascinating to me, but it's just how that musical diaspora takes place. It's fascinating. And so, you know, you find elements of it in every genre of music.
Really cool. Really cool. Where can people find your music or get in touch with you if they want to book a gig or they want to find out more about your band, talk music, set you up on a festival, buy your vinyl or your CD? How can they get a hold of you?
They can find us at sloweyandtheboats.com. If you email from that site, it'll go straight to my inbox. All of our merchandising and stuff at this point, High Tide is taken care of. So you can find t-shirts, records, all that stuff they're selling on the website, and it'll be shipped out, you know, next day for the most part from High Tide Recordings. But yeah, they can get in touch with me personally on there. We, you know, Instagram, Slowey and the Boats. We do have some videos up on YouTube, although, you know, we're not too active on there. But yeah, hitting us up on social media. We're on all the streaming services, so it's easy to get in touch these days.
Awesome. Isaac, hey, it's such a great time talking to you, and I appreciate you accommodating my schedule and taking your time after a long day's work and just talking to me about the music and your experience with it.
Yeah, man. Thanks, Ryan. This was wonderful and great to chat with you. And I didn't realize you were right down the road here.
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll see you.
I used to work kind of across the street from you. I used to work at Channel 10 when it was on City Ave.
Oh, yeah.
And now I'm down at NBC Sports Philly.
All right. Very cool, man. Well, it was great chatting with you, and let's do it again sometime.
Awesome. Maybe when that Christmas album comes out.
Yeah, man. Absolutely.
Okay, you have a great night now.
All right. You too, Ryan. Take it easy.